I was an assistant pastor at Bible Baptist Church, and after a year or so, we left there and came back, and I felt like the Lord was dealing with me about starting a church. And so we started it through Bible Baptist Ascending Church, and that's how it happened. We started it in a school, I believe.
Okay.
Was it in?
No, Waldorf.
In Waldorf.
Okay.
Started in a school in Waldorf, and we rented it on Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, and I believe Wednesday nights, and they would send a janitor over to open the building, and we would have our services there. I went to First Baptist Church in Hammond and saw Brother Howell's bus ministry. We needed to have at least a bus. And we bought a bus, and we got it filled up, and bought another bus, filled it up, and so it was kind of funny because people would come to church, and we'd have 60 kids and 3 or 4 or 5 adults.
Pastor Burwell and Brother Wilkins came by in our neighborhood. We were in the process of having some work done at our house, so we were living in our motorhome, and they offered us to go to church. And as kids, me, my brother and sister, we all decided that sounded like a good idea, knowing how kids are. And Mom and Dad agreed with it. I guess they wanted to have a little break from us. So we started going. We had fun on the bus. I mean, they sang songs, they did all kinds of games and stuff as we were going back and forth. I think that Pastor Burwell was one of those ones that had to swallow a live fish if we had a certain amount of people on the bus at one time, and I believe he had to swallow that fish. If it wasn't for the bus ministry, I don't know where I would be today.
Well, we interacted with each other continuously. And by the way, Brother Fawley, when he took our church, was a tremendous, solid, down the line, good preacher. I mean, he was hard.
He merged the two churches
And
at that time.
yeah, and because I preached for him, he had preached for me, and kids went to school there in the early days, and so I talked with him about it, and he was willing to come and merge the two churches, and so I got with the people.
But when Pastor Foley came, the thing that I liked the most was that he was a good singer. He wasn't as friendly as most pastors are. He was more, of preaching and teaching, but he wrote out the lessons for the Sunday school teachers. Every class from childhood, even the nursery, to adults had the same lesson. Whenever we came home from Sunday school, then we could sit and talk to our children and discuss the same lesson,
We met in it would look like an old house type thing. They had the auditorium where they had torn some rafters down and made it an auditorium.
I would tell you, we had a good bunch of people then, and they all worked very hard on that church because all of them wanted to get out of this trailer.
Yeah, the church has gone through a lot. There's just a few people, but we've got 15 acres of ground that's completely paid for. I'd like to apply for a loan to build a building. And normally bankers would laugh you out of their office, having a non-respectable reputation. And about 3 weeks later, we were able to secure the money to begin building, and we did it ourselves. We had block layers in our church. They came in, laid the block, and helped us put the walls up. It was, I think, a 60, maybe it was a 40 by 100, something like, I can't remember exactly. But we put it together, and the Lord just began to move in a very special way. And it is an amazing sight to see God move. God is not in the business of a bunch of foolishness, but He is in the business of doing something miraculous. And that's what we witnessed at Victory Baptist Church in Charlotte Hall, Maryland.
Morning when I wake up to see the sun.
I came here in January of 1983 to be the school administrator. And within a couple of months, I was the pastor of the church. The pastoring part of this church, I loved every minute of it. I wanted to be a missions-giving, faith-promised church. Other than that, that would be my vision. It was exciting to see people go from here and pastor.
But yeah, he was very mission minded. We had missionaries. I mean, I don't even know how the church even afforded all those missionaries, but the 2 back walls in the church filled with missionaries. We managed to pay them all.
But praise the Lord for all he's done.
I'd always heard once your building is about 75% full, it's time to think about enlarging. Drew up plans on a yellow legal pad. You didn't have to get a whole lot of permits back in those days, didn't have to do a whole lot. And we had a banquet at St. Mary's Landing and presented it to the church. Remember one Thanksgiving, we had all the roofing up, or what do you call the things, the trusses. And the heavy wind came and blew them all down, blew the sides down. Oh man, what a disaster.
So
We
they all
started
worked
building
hard.
this big part here, and we got the rafters up, and we had one gigantic
Big storm.
storm coming across, blew the roof down.
Blew the whole thing down.
We had to do it all over again.
We had to rebuild that twice to get it to stay. Is that telling?
And Roy Wilkins came down and his sons looked at it and said, "We'll fix it." And they did. If you ever go up in the attic, you'll see all the trusses are nailed together and braced. But it didn't take long to pay the building off. Just giving was good.
It's just begun, and I can't help but praise the Lord for all he's done. Even though
Victory throughout the years would have our guys come in and preach. So a lot of our young men, staff members would go in and they would preach there. And I'm sure Jerry had preached there. And when we knew that there was a need, when they knew there was a need, Brother Jerry came to me and they asked me about it. And I just told him, you know, it's the Lord's doing, and we needed to really pray for them and pray about it and, you know, let the Lord work that thing out.
When we were members of Independent, he was asked to become the director of the RD program in Independent. And he just loved people and loved to help them in any way they needed help. When God called him to pastor here, he wanted to continue to bless them. And when God brought us here, he just opened the doors, and I believe the McGowans are results from there, and so many people. He just loved people.